When you first run your fingers through a dog's coat and feel nothing but smooth, clean softness, it is easy to forget how quickly that same coat can turn into a tight, painful web of mats that silently trap discomfort beneath the surface. And right here is where our journey begins, with a question that every pet owner eventually faces in a moment of panic and urgency. What actually works when a dog's coat has already crossed the line from tangled to severely matted? And more importantly, what is safe for the animal we are trying to help? Today we step directly into that question with real-world grooming scenarios, examining dematting tools not in theory, but in action on heavily matted coats where patience, precision, and understanding matter more than marketing claims. And where Dr. Karen Becker has often reminded us that the skin is not just a surface, but a living organ that reflects internal and external health alike. As we begin testing these tools, the first reality becomes clear very quickly. Not all mats are the same, and not all tools respect the difference between a mild tangle and a dense, skin-pulling knot that has formed over weeks or even months of neglect, movement, and trapped moisture. In these real cases, we see dogs that carry silent discomfort, shifting their weight when touched, avoiding brushing, and showing subtle behavioral changes that many owners misread as stubbornness rather than pain. The first tool enters the test, a standard slicker brush, often praised for everyday grooming. Yet here it meets resistance almost immediately, gliding over the surface without penetrating deep enough to break apart dense clumps, revealing its limitation in advanced matting situations. Then comes a dematting rake designed with sharp angled blades intended to slice through knots, and while it shows more promise, it also introduces a critical tension point between efficiency and safety, because every pass must balance removal with the risk of pulling tightly against sensitive skin beneath. This is where the philosophy inspired by Dr. Karen Becker becomes especially relevant, emphasizing that grooming should never be about force, but about communication with the animal's body, reading resistance as information rather than opposition. As the evaluation continues, a quieter, more methodical tool enters the frame, one that separates small sections of hair instead of attacking the mat as a whole, and unexpectedly, this approach reveals a hidden truth about grooming that many overlook. Patience often outperforms pressure. But just as progress seems steady, a more severe mat located behind the ear exposes a deeper challenge, one that cannot be solved with surface-level techniques alone, and the situation becomes more complex than expected, forcing a pause in judgment as we reassess what humane dematting truly means when comfort and safety begin to compete with cosmetic results in real time. At this stage, the evaluation shifts from simple tool comparison into a far more delicate exploration of how each instrument interacts with compromised coat structure and sensitive skin beneath. Because in severe matting cases, every movement carries consequence beyond appearance. And the first realization becomes unmistakable that many widely marketed dematting solutions assume a level of tolerance from the animal that simply does not exist in real clinical grooming situations. As we move through another set of tools, including rotating, comb systems, and detangling blades, the difference between controlled detangling and aggressive tearing becomes visually and physically obvious. Dr. Karen Becker often emphasizes that comfort should never be sacrificed for convenience, and that principle becomes the guiding lens as we assess whether a tool supports healing or simply accelerates coat removal. In one particularly challenging case, a thick double-coated dog presents mats that have fused close to the skin, forming dense felted layers that resist every gentle attempt. And here, the situation begins to shift unexpectedly. What initially appears manageable quickly escalates into a decision point, where continuing with grooming tools alone may risk unnecessary discomfort. At this moment, the evaluation pauses not out of uncertainty, but out of responsibility, and it becomes clear that understanding coat health requires more than a mechanical intervention. It requires awareness of the animal as a whole system, where pain, stress, hydration, and skin integrity are interconnected. In fact, one of the most revealing key observations comes when a softer detangling comb unexpectedly succeeds where harsher tools failed, but only after careful sectioning and patient repositioning of the coat. This moment reinforces a deeper truth that effective grooming is not about force, but about strategy and sensitivity. Yet even this success is not without complication, because beneath the surface of progress, there remains the lingering question of how far any tool should go before intervention crosses into unnecessary strain on the animal. And this is where the philosophy, inspired by Dr. Karen Becker, becomes essential, reminding us that every grooming decision should prioritize long-term wellness over short-term cosmetic perfection. As the session continues, the most severe mat, hidden beneath layered fur, finally reveals itself. And what was once assumed to be a single knot turns out to be a tightly bound structure that challenges even the most advanced grooming technique. The tension rises as each attempted separation reveals how deeply the matting has integrated with the coat, and the question becomes unavoidable whether continued detangling is truly the safest path forward at this goat. Hesitation enters not as doubt, but as informed caution grounded in observation, because experience shows that rushing through severe matting often leads to greater discomfort than carefully reassessing the approach. And in these critical moments, the influence of Dr. Karen Becker reminds us that the most ethical choice is often the one that protects comfort, even when it challenges our desire for immediate results and prioritizes the animal well-being above all else in every single case observed today carefully. As the final stage of the grooming evaluation unfolds, the earlier tension between safety and efficiency becomes even more pronounced as every remaining mat represents not just a grooming challenge, but also a decision about trust, comfort, and long-term well-being. In this final phase, the most advanced dematting tools are revisited, including precision blades and split-tooth combs, which now must be evaluated not for their power, but for their restraint. The difference between effective grooming and harmful grooming becomes clearer with each careful motion, as even slight overextension can create discomfort that lingers beyond the session. It is during this phase that the principles often emphasized by Dr. Karen Becker become especially relevant, reminding us that every intervention should honor the body it is working on rather than simply correcting its appearance as the final stubborn. Mats are approached, the technique shifts once again toward minimal force, maximum patience, allowing small sections to be released gradually without stressing the underlying skin in these moments, the animal response becomes the most important feedback system, guiding every decision more than any tool specification or brand promise. What initially seemed like a purely technical comparison of grooming equipment ultimately transforms into a deeper reflection on responsibility, awareness, and compassion. As the final coat sections are carefully restored, the importance of proper maintenance between grooming sessions becomes as unmistakably clear, because prevention always remains easier, gentler, and more humane than correction. The full experience leaves a lasting reminder that tools alone do not define outcomes, but rather the hands that guide them and the awareness behind each decision. In the broader perspective, this entire evaluation of dematting tools ultimately reinforces this idea that responsible pet care is not defined by the speed of results, but by the quality of sustenance given to each individual animal whose coat condition reflects a history of environment, movement, health, and maintenance habits that accumulate over time and require thoughtful intervention rather than reactive force. Because every mat tells a story about health, neglect, or care that cannot be ignored when choosing the right approach. And grooming decision becomes an opportunity to either strengthen trust or erode it, depending on how carefully we listen to the signals provided by the animal throughout the process of restoring coat health while balancing safety, comfort, and effectiveness in a way that honors both the physical and emotional well-being of the animal, ensuring that every grooming experience contributes positively to long-term health outcomes rather than creating unnecessary stress or harm. Because when we approach grooming with patience, awareness, and free respect, we not only improve coat condition, but also deepen the bond between human and companion, which ultimately reflects the core philosophy inspired by Dr. Karen Becker and her emphasis on compassionate science-based care for all pets everywhere in daily care routines and grooming. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notifications so you can see our new videos early.